what I always tell clients is it's not dead. It's still alive and it needs nutrients so that when the time comes to come out of dormancy, it's ready to do that and it has everything that it needs.
Okay. Welcome to episode 16 of Behind the Turf. Today's topic is dormancy, and the title is Dormancy, Turf's Not Dead. We're going to thank Ryan Edwards for that idea. He's our general manager. He joined us a few podcasts back, and he texted me that. And because I'm always, asking people, when people say like, "Oh, I saw the podcast," I'm like, "Well, what do you want to see next?" Like, I need some ideas, And so it was really helpful because I think that's where we are right now, right? Is talking about the lawn transitioning. And so today we are joined with Jared Koenig. He's our agronomist.
Yellow.
And we've brought Ruth back because, as always, Ruth Wilkerson is our support team lead, and she has the insights to what the clients are actually asking, not what they teach you at school.
Well,
but we're glad you're here still.
But we still care about you.
Yeah.
We still need you.
We definitely still need you. We want to give factual information out, right? So let's just start why don't we just start by saying, like, what is dormancy? When I say dormancy, what is that? I don't even know if people even know what it is.
yeah, it's just a stress response. It's kind of like when bears hibernate, right? Turf grass, Bermuda and zoysia specifically, they like hot weather. And when it gets too cold out, they just kind of say, It's a lot like trees that drop their leaves in the wintertime. It gets cold. They decide they don't need to be producing a bunch of top growth anymore. And then that stuff freezes off, and that's what ends up that tan color. That's how it ends up tan.
I'm surprised you didn't already say this. You didn't catch me. But we are specifically talking about warm season turf grasses in this podcast,
yes.
right?
Correct. Yep,
so Bermudas and zoysias in particular are the ones where we are going to focus on.
Yep.
So that this podcast doesn't last forever, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we could go really deep.
There is some cold response in fescue too, but it's it generally stays green, and then there's reasons for that too.
And Ruth, what do you think the misconceptions are when we start to go into that period of dormancy?
That you don't need lawn care anymore. The most common thing I hear is you don't need to come out. My grass is dead.
Yeah, and that's so far from the truth, right, Jared?
Not quite dead yet.
Yeah.
It's very much alive. It's just in a different phase of that process.
It's in its dormant era.
Yeah, and it still needs... I love how he entertains himself. One man show over here.
And it's not because the camera's on. This is just
this is how it is. So anyway, what I always tell clients is it's not dead. It's still alive and it needs nutrients so that when the time comes to come out of dormancy, it's ready to do that and it has everything that it needs.
Yeah, and Jared, specifically though, why, I always say like fall is one of the most important times in my opinion, right? But why, what are we doing in the fall? Why is fall lawn care important?
Yeah, we'll shift away from nitrogen. People, when they go to the garden centers or they go to the store and they're looking for fertilizer, a lot of time they want that first number on the bag, that N in the NPK to be big. Well, that's not really what you want in the fall. You don't want to force growth. You don't want to make the plants do something they don't want to do. And so you'll see that we shift to weed control specifically for winter weeds. We shift toward nutritional content that's going to help fortify root health, that's going to help with plant hardiness as we enter the winter time. And then, through dormancy, we'll do things like limestone and whatnot that are set up that foundation that become fundamentally important as it's sleeping to get ready for when it's waking up again. And we'll address that down the line.
Yeah. Well, what does that mean for our clients? Basically, what he's saying is if you don't want to have weeds next spring,
don't skip a treatment.
There you go.
Do not skip a treatment. People think that this is a great time to do that, and in reality,
cut the budget right now.
People who do that have the most issues in the spring with weed emergence. And once you move past the pre-emergent rounds, I always say this and everybody laughs, but it's whack-a-mole. Now we're coming out and we're treating weeds we see, but we can't do anything about what we don't see. That was taken care of. That time has come and gone to take care of what we don't see. So we can treat the weeds we see and leave, and tomorrow new ones are coming up because they've already germinated in the soil. It's all done. Damage is done. So we're just working reactively, and it's much better for them and us to work proactively and to get that to get that strike down before we're just dealing with stuff that gets out of control.
Well, the only thing worse than green weeds and green turf grass is green weeds and tan turf grass. I mean, they stick out so badly.
Yes.
From a product standpoint too, is like if you're doing that prevention idea, right, behind the fall treatments for the spring weeds, right? I mean, you're just really setting yourself up to have to use less products in the spring, would you not say?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, the idea is that by doing pre-emergence, right, by using a little bit of a pre-emergent to stop the germination from happening, to slow down the development of weeds, it's not only is it going to immediately reduce the amount of product that we have to use to achieve the same results, we'll be able to achieve better results with less product. And honestly, it also keeps those weeds from getting mature enough to produce seed and putting seed down in the soil. We call that the seed bank. And it just for years, I mean, it's a thing that making a simple choice right now to stay on the program, not only will it give you better quality now, but it'll make it much easier to maintain that quality through this year and coming seasons as well.
And Ruth, what is your team outside of staying on the program, which is obviously key, and that's how we pay the bills. So we have this beautiful podcast, right? It's our only sponsor.
But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that's true. Still trying to get the Raccio, the irrigation controllers to sponsor us.
Please.
I keep name dropping Raccio irrigation controllers.
Yeah.
But I really do think they work. But we won't go into that again. What do clients need to do outside of staying on the program? What is your team talking to clients about so that they don't, because when it turns brown, you immediately think we're packing up everything, right?
Yeah, really keeping it cleaned up. A big thing is keeping leaves on the lawn. Some people even did it on purpose last year, and the reality is that it's smothering the turf. The turf still needs all the nutrients. It still needs sunlight. It still needs air. And it creates little breeding grounds for fungal issues or even death in certain spots if it's just smothered all fall and winter. So keeping the lawn cleaned up and remembering that you are still dealing with a plant, a living thing, and it needs care. If you wouldn't do it to a house plant, don't do it to a plant outside where you're just you wouldn't put a blanket over a house plant for the winter and just be like, okay, hope you come out you take care of it. And you don't have to, fortunately, you don't have to be out there watering all the time in the winter. But so that's one less thing, but definitely keeping it clean, keeping things off the lawn, things like that, being mindful.
And not packing up that mower, right?
Yeah, it's a good tool to use as long as you don't get down into the canopy. You want to maintain that canopy through dormancy because it's an important part. Certain weeds need exposure to sunlight in order to germinate, in order to come and emerge out of the ground. So you want to keep that canopy as part of a weed control strategy. It also looks a lot better to leave a tan canopy on top than it does to just leave stems if you cut them all off. But yeah, utilize that mower. That's one of the only few times I encourage using a bagging attachment too. If you have one, you can use that to pick up your leaves and do that, or just at least mulch them and blow them out of the way kind of deal. But the other thing to consider too, as far as cleanliness is concerned, on top of all of those things, which are wonderful, it also makes it hard for us to get a uniformed application, so there'd be times where we, our technicians, we have an unbelievable group of technicians. They're great, professional, wonderful people that are out there doing those applications. They'll elect not to because they know that if they were to apply to a yard that's absolutely covered in leaves and those leaves are displaced, that it would be a waste of effort for them and money for a client. So yeah, making sure that it's cleaned up is imperative for plant health. It's better for the look of the yard too. It looks much prettier when it's clean, but it also doesn't impair treatment. It allows us to get a nice uniformed application of pre-emergent weed control products, post-emergence, as well as any nutritional things we may be doing at that time as well.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about it yet, but it's really one of the big times of the year where you actually see disease. Specifically in zoysias.
Yeah, especially that transition before we go completely dormant. Once we're dormant, you may not see it as much. Every once in a while we'll get some really funny things like pink snow mold, microdochium. It's weird. We'll see a couple cases of that a year if we're really wet. But yeah, in the transition in the fall, rhizoc in zoysia, that's when it's really popping because it's growing so slowly.
And that's why I love that prevention service that we have. The preventive fungicides is just such a great way. Yeah. It's worked so well, just preventing it from ever being a problem for our clients.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody's got any questions about those, give us a shout because it's one of those programs that, it's it's guaranteed if something does happen, between those treatments and stuff, we'll certainly, rectify those situations. But it is a very, very effective program for resisting that damage. And in the fall, it's tough because that stuff, it's not going to grow back through it. Those spots will be there and will probably still linger through the spring if they're not prevented from happening in the first place.
Yeah. And Ruth, people have got those irrigation systems going full blast, going into the fall. It's an easy thing to forget about, but what are you guys telling from the support standpoint? What are you guys telling clients when they talk about watering in the fall?
It's not really necessary. They can shut them down, put them to bed, whatever they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have to have somebody come out and do it, but they can kind of turn those off and let nature do its thing this time.
Yeah,
of
and
year.
I say fall, but I mean dormant. For us here in Metro Atlanta, it's probably like early winter before the grass is fully dormant.
Yeah, it depends on the year. It's usually second week in November.
But it cools off so much that, you don't need to keep up that same intense watering schedule like you do in
because the nights
heat.
are cooler.
Yeah, the nights are cooler, so it takes longer. So you don't, if like right now, in some cases, clients have had to water every day. You don't have to do that. You can kind of spread that out and be aware that there's going to be more moisture retention with the cooler days and shorter days, things like that. It doesn't have as long through the day, so they can kind of adjust those watering schedules.
I will give a shout out to like Raccio and the other smart controllers and stuff that do these things. When it comes to like fall into dormant transition, every once in a while, the last podcast, I think it's the last one that comes out before this, right? Is the one we had your dad on.
Yeah.
He talked about, certain fall. I remember years ago, I was still on the golf course and I was wilt watching one time in October because it was still really hot and dry out that year. And that was much later than we normally had to be pulling hoses on golf greens. But one of the things that's nice about those controllers is you don't have to worry about what your UV intensity is. You don't have to worry about what your evapotranspiration rates are. You don't have to worry about that stuff. Those things kind of take care of themselves in that instance. So if we have a really hot October, even though grass is really slowed down a lot, if we have a really hot, dry October, those systems are good about helping to knit those together and making those choices where instead in the past you had to go, do I really need to? Because it's not that hot out.
Yeah.
Those systems are good at helping to identify, okay, well, I probably still need to. And then obviously as we get into wintertime, winterizing those systems and not having to worry about them anymore. But that's another good plug for those smart controllers, taking some of that guesswork out.
Yeah. Wrapping it up a little bit, like what are your kind of ending thoughts on this podcast?
It's not dead.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the biggest one. And we have a wonderful, melting pot of people from different parts of the world and different parts of the country here in Atlanta, where over time this has become a very diverse group of people with backgrounds that are from all kinds of weather conditions, and maybe you had a lawn before, but it was a completely different kind of thing. When it comes right down to it, the first time your lawn goes dormant, if you've never had a lawn that does that before, I know that it can be shocking, but I promise you it's not dead. It just needs a nap. It's just a little uncomfortable right now. It's cold. It doesn't feel like growing, but it's the choices that we make now are what are going to help, one, keep it clean and presentable through the wintertime, two, set it up for success when it's time to come back out in the spring, because that green, beautiful lawn that you had in June will be green and beautiful in June again. We just got to get it there.
All right, Ruth, what's our good takeaways from this podcast?
Clean your lawn up.
Yeah, keep it clean.
Mow it, take care of it, continue to care for it. It's still a living thing. It still needs care.
Yeah.
And like he said, it's not dead. It's
So
alive.
Keep the treatments going.
Yep.
Takeaway, keep the treatments going.
Yep.
Can't say it enough. Mowing, stay on some sort of a regular mowing schedule. It doesn't need to be every week,
Yep.
but we want to keep the lawn clean and always keep the leaves, as we're going through that really heavy leaf fall, off the lawn.
Yeah.
It's just going to help you have way more success, not only with the program, but your turf health in general. What I miss?
I think that covers it.
Great.
It's alive, I promise.
I appreciate y'all coming in and talking through this with us. I think these are the kind of things that help our clients just have a better experience with their lawn, and it's such a important part of visually how people see or use their property. So anyway, so we appreciate you guys tuning in for this episode. As always, we love the feedback. So definitely ask that if you've enjoyed it, to follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, any of those wherever you like to get your podcasts. But also the comments, we love them. We love the good and the bad and the difference of opinion. Like we really appreciate that. And as always, we're looking for new ideas, things that you guys are interested in that we can share our real world experience here in Atlanta. So again, thank you, Ruth and Jared, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.